I never thought my past as a Navy SEAL would matter in a quiet suburban neighborhood, but one afternoon, it came crashing back in the most brutal way. Three fake cops in tactical vests stormed onto my property pretending to enforce HOA law, and one of them made the biggest mistake of his life. He punched my wife, Sarah, right in the ribs trying to grab her. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. It started like any other peaceful Friday. Sarah was just coming back from grocery shopping, the sound of her footsteps light on the porch as she juggled a few paper bags. I was in the living room, cleaning gear and catching the faint rhythm of her humming, until a black SUV rolled up our driveway. Three men stepped out, all dressed in tactical vests labeled HOA Enforcement Unit. No real police insignia, no marked vehicle, just fake confidence and cheap badges. Sarah froze as the first man, tall, square-jawed, wearing dark shades, walked straight up to her. "Ma'am, we're here on HOA orders. You've violated Property Code 14C, unapproved exterior changes," he said. Sarah frowned. "You mean the flower pots?" He ignored her tone. "We need to inspect the property. Move aside." Sarah didn't budge. "You're trespassing. You don't have a warrant, and this is private property. Under Texas Penal Code 30.05, that's a crime." Her voice was steady, calm, exactly how I taught her. But instead of backing off, one stepped closer, his hand resting on his baton. When Sarah pulled out her phone to record, he slapped it from her hand, and then, with the same motion, smacked the grocery bags out of her arms. Apples rolled across the porch, and before she could even gasp, he drove his fist straight into her ribs. She screamed, loud, the kind of sound that flips a switch inside your head. I heard it, dropped everything. My legs moved before my mind caught up. I sprinted down the hallway straight to the drawer by the door. My M4 rested there, locked, legal, and loaded. The same weapon I trained with for over a decade. When I burst out onto the porch, the men had Sarah cornered, two trying to grab her arms while she gasped for air. I raised the rifle, sights locked. "Drop your gear now." "You boys picked the wrong house," I said, pointing my M4 at them. "You've got 5 seconds to explain who sent you," the tall one sneered. "The HOA president told us you've been ignoring notices. We're here to make sure you comply." That was all I needed to hear. "Back away from my wife," I shouted. "You're trespassing, assaulting a civilian, and impersonating law enforcement." The leader turned, sneering. "She's detained for obstructing HOA enforcement." He didn't finish. The next sound was the click of the safety switch. The porch went silent, except for the echo of my voice, low and controlled. "You just made the last mistake of your life." The second his hand twitched toward Sarah again, my finger squeezed the trigger. Three sharp bursts tore through the air, the controlled rhythm I'd trained into muscle memory. 2 rounds hit clean, one in the shoulder, another in the thigh. The third man dove behind the SUV, glass shattering as a bullet tore through the side mirror. Sarah screamed again, stumbling back against the porch railing, clutching her ribs. "Get down," I shouted, moving in front of her. The two injured men writhed on the driveway, one clutching his bleeding arm, cursing through his teeth. The leader, the tall one, threw down his fake baton, hands raised halfway but still barking. "You're dead, man. You just shot at officers." "Real ones don't wear airsoft gear," I snapped. He lunged. Bad idea. I dropped the rifle to its sling and closed the distance. His punch came wide. I ducked, stepped inside, and drove a knee straight into his gut. He folded, gasping. My left hand grabbed his vest, slammed him against the SUV hood, and my elbow cracked across his jaw. He collapsed, groaning, completely done. For a few seconds, the only sound was the faint ringing in my ears and the hiss of Sarah's breathing behind me. My vision tunneled, but training kicked in. Muzzle down, threats neutralized. Secure the scene. I kicked the weapons, fake batons and plastic handcuffs out of reach, then pulled my phone from my pocket and hit 911. "This is a self-defense shooting. 3 suspects impersonating police officers, 1 injured. My wife's been assaulted. Send deputies and EMS." Sarah steadied herself beside me, still clutching her ribs. Her eyes met mine, shaking but proud. "They said they were HOA enforcement," she whispered. "Not anymore," I said. Within minutes, sirens wailed in the distance. Neighbors peeked out from porches, phones recording. The black SUV's engine ticked in the heat, bullet holes visible down its side. 2 county cruisers screeched to a halt at the end of the driveway. Deputies spilled out, guns drawn. "Hands where we can see them," one yelled. I raised my hands instantly, M4 slung down, palms open. "Shooter's me, Navy SEAL, weapons safe, victims of impersonation and assault." One deputy turned to me. "Sir, you're saying they impersonated law enforcement?" "Yes, sir," I replied. "Under Texas Penal Code 37.11, that's a felony, and they assaulted my wife under 22.01. The deputy nodded grimly. "You did the right thing defending her." They moved fast, cuffing the groaning suspects, checking their wounds, and sweeping up the fake gear. One deputy knelt to pick up a cheap metal badge that read Community Enforcement Officer. He snorted. "These idiots printed this on a home printer." Sarah gave her statement, plus the footage of my Ring camera recording the entire aftermath. Then the sheriff himself arrived. Gray hair, calm eyes, hand resting on his holster. He looked at the suspects, then at me, then back at the shattered SUV. "Looks like we've got ourselves one hell of a mess," he said. "Tell me everything." And I did. Every brutal second of it. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. By noon the next day, the story had spread across the county. Sarah was in the hospital, 3 fractured ribs, one nearly displaced. The attending physician noted blunt force trauma consistent with a closed fist strike. She was kept for pain management and observation, and when I saw her lying there, bruised but breathing, something inside me went cold. Meanwhile, the scene outside our house looked like something out of a crime drama. Deputies had the area taped off, shell casings marked, and the fake officers in custody. The one I'd hit in the leg was stabilized. Non-lethal round through the thigh, just as I'd trained for. The one with the shoulder graze was patched by EMTs. The third, the one I dropped with my hands, had a dislocated arm and a busted nose. All 3 were booked that night. The charges were heavy. The county prosecutor hit them with impersonating a peace officer under Texas Penal Code 37.11, aggravated assault with bodily injury, criminal trespass 30.05, and bail was denied due to the violent nature of the crime and the use of fake law enforcement gear. But that wasn't the end of it. The next morning, the HOA president herself, Karen Ellis, strutted up to my property with a camera crew from a local outlet. She claimed I had opened fire on HOA enforcement contractors and that I was the one endangering the community. The arrogance almost made me laugh. 2 days later, I received a formal letter through my lawyer. Karen was filing a civil suit against me for reckless endangerment and property damage, arguing that her security officers were hired legally. My attorney, a former JAG officer, took one look and grinned. This is going to blow up in her face. In court, the evidence crushed her. Sarah's hospital records. My home security footage showing the fake badges, the slap, the punch, and the assault. The SUV they drove, registered to a shell company tied directly to the HOA's operating fund. The county forensic accountant traced the payment authorization right to Karen's signature. When the DA finished his presentation, the courtroom was silent. The judge turned to Karen, unimpressed. "Mrs. Ellis, you didn't hire licensed security. You hired criminals. Your lawsuit is dismissed, and you'll be facing your own charges for conspiracy and misuse of HOA funds." "I didn't tell them to hurt anyone," Karen cried. "I just told them to make sure the HOA rules were enforced. I didn't know they'd actually attack her, but the jury didn't buy it. The evidence showed she orchestrated everything." The gavel hit the desk hard. Prosecutors charged her with engaging in organized criminal activity, Texas Penal Code 71.02, conspiracy to commit aggravated assault, 1502, and criminal trespass, 30.05. Karen's face drained of color as deputies escorted her out for questioning. The same day, the HOA board held an emergency meeting. She was removed unanimously. As for the fake officers, each pled guilty in exchange for reduced time. 10 years total for the leader, 7 for the others. The plea deal required them to testify against Karen, sealing her own fate. She ended up 5 years in state prison, revoked her HOA position for life, and ordered her to pay $62,000 in damages to Sarah for medical bills and emotional trauma, a felony record, and a permanent ban from HOA leadership. Sarah came home the following week. Her ribs were still bandaged, her steps slow, but her eyes bright. I wrapped my arm around her gently. "They thought they could break us." She smiled back. They learned who they were dealing with. And that day, every neighbor on the block finally understood. No fake badge, no power trip, and no HOA president would ever cross our line again.